let's jump in. We touched upon a lot, and there was so much more we never got to at all. So who wants to be the first? Questions? There's a raised hand way down there. Tell us who you are and for whom you work, and then go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sylvan. I'm with Acrylics, and this is a question for Karen. I agree with what you said. You said that the definition of a bore is someone who dominates the conversation. So on the basis of that, if you want to do really good PR, you have to, it seems you have to balance the amount of talking and speaking that you do as well as the amount of listening. What company do you have in mind that is a good example of this balance between talking and hearing?
That's a good question. I mean, other than the obvious companies represented here that I think do a great job of
very good answer.
Communicating.
Must be in PR.
It's like someone just said to me, PR is a disease.
Yeah, it's toxic, but we all do it. You know, it's interesting. You know, my world is very focused on tech, so I'll have to be boring and give an example of tech, but I really admire Cisco. I think Cisco does a really, really fantastic job of, I think they're competitive, I think they're pretty progressive. I think they do, it's hard for me to say that they do a great job of listening, but I just think that they, if I had to look at a company that I think in general just does a real nice job in kind of top to bottom global communications, I like their work a lot.
All right, any more raised hands here? Have a golden opportunity. Get a lot of expertise all lined up. Suddenly everybody's shy.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm Kat Eden. I work for education.com, and I'm wondering how folks either on the panel or in the room have figured out how to measure the influence of the people who are talking out there. So, for example, in my role, we work a lot with parents who are blogging and education blogs, and I know that we are, you know, it's critical that we're listening, but it used to be you knew your targeted media list, right? You had your tier A, tier B, New York Times, and who down here, but in the blogging world, it's certainly not that obvious who's influential and who to spend your time with, and if I spent my day commenting back to every comment that was written about our company, I would get nothing else done. So how do you know who to target?
Talk to any company who works with mommy bloggers. See how they're doing it. If you look at what Walmart did with their 11 moms and other companies going after the mom blogging world, it's a very, very strong influencer market out there, and they tend to companies like who's the I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Graco.
Yeah, Graco.
Graco, yeah.
Phil and Ted's, Graco, and all those guys. I'd say that there's also, I mean, simply put, there are lots of statistical ways of figuring out who's important in terms of their ranking in the blogosphere, the amount of traffic they're getting. Use any of the blog tools that are out there. Some of the free and open source ones are great as well for just understanding traffic patterns and links in, links out, etc. And then there are some really good paid platforms that will enable you to understand that in a very visual basis. Who is the epicenter of conversations? You know, we can categorize out who are conversation starters, who are active participants, who are passive participants. You can actually segment who, you know, the nature of people in the blogosphere and focus your efforts that way as well. So
yeah,
lots of ways of doing that.
One other interesting thing that you might try too, and it's not anything particularly new or innovative, but you know, we tend to treat our big influencer blog communities like, you know, media. They are media. They're, you know, they're citizen media. You know, you might want to think about the next time you have a big announcement, communicate it to them first before you communicate it to anybody else. You know, I think treating bloggers with, even if it's the littlest blogger, they might have influence that's exponentially humongous. Treating them, you know, as if they are, you know, Business Week is a pretty good idea.
I think your question also beneath it lies another separate question that I think a lot of PR people I talk to are struggling to deal with, is just how do you resource social media in a fixed headcount world? And I think the simplest way you do it is start to scale your efforts more aggressively through customer service and support functions. and through third-party service and support functions. You know, where you've got a product, that is just becoming, I think, more and more. There's no way we're going to add 40 more headcount to handle ever-increasing comments in the blogosphere. So you've got to figure a way of saying to your customer service and support people and coaching them and helping them become enabled to respond. You can't be the gateway to the blogosphere, because you'll kill yourself and the company won't win.
And hire interns.
Yeah,
Interns
Interns are good.
Interns.
Another quick point on that. What you mentioned when we were working with Harrah's Hotels, we actually did. Their other agencies were big at doing familiarization trips for top-level media. They'd bring someone from Travel and Leisure and someone from whatever, and 6 months later they'd get a little quarter-page mention. It was a lovely platform for them. We went after Gawker. And we went after, and this is Atlantic City, sort of like the bastard stepchild of Las Vegas. And so we had to do something that made them think that it's as good as New York. So we brought Gawker and all these lifestyle bloggers in New York, these 23-year-old kids who get paid $28,000 a year and subsist on the charity of PR people to do these kind of things that had never done it before for a hotel chain. And we brought them down and said, here, party up for a weekend, have fun. And put them in suites, and they had field days. I mean, they had the biggest, most fun they'd ever had in their life. They wrote about it. We gave them limos, the whole thing. And it cost a quarter of what it would have cost to send one of these highfalutin travel and leisure people that want to bring their dog with a separate room, and they were thrilled. They loved us for it, and we got great coverage out of that. So don't forget the little bloggers; they will be your biggest fans.
And I'd twist that too. I'd say at the other end, don't forget the bloggerati. There is a uber elite blogging community out there that is incredibly powerful as any of the media. There is also a new class of blog media that has emerged that is enormously powerful. I mean, I invested in an e-commerce startup that launched about 5 weeks ago. And for the first 2 weeks, their PR agency had gone down quite a conventional path, and they were getting coverage in all of the traditional media. One piece of coverage in Daily Candy increased their subscriber rate to 30,000 subscribers a week, new subscribers to their little e-commerce site a week.
Besides Daily Candy, who are some of the others you're referring to?
Oh, there's just an enormous run of them out there that are of a similar ilk. Cool Hunting, I can send you an OPML file on them all, but there's just a mountain of these specialized niche blog media sites who are ad revenue funded, who they're not bloggers. I mean, I wake up in the morning at Dell, I'm not worried about what Walt Mossberg's going to write. I'm worried about what Ryan and the guys are writing at Engadget and Gizmodo and those sites. They're the ones that cause me. They're more likely to break a story than any journalist out there except Justin Sheck at the Wall Street Journal.
Go down the list though. I mean, Daily Candy is has 1.35 million subscribers. There are a lot less publications out there that are much more willing to take your calls. I mean, how many people in this audience have had pounded their fists in fury just like that because Daily Candy won't return their calls? Daily Candy, I'd almost say, is major media. Yeah, I would look at some of the smaller bloggers, even and I hate to use this term because it sucks, but Twitterati. Look at people like Brogan, Chris Brogan, Julia Allison, Julia Roy. Even people have come to me and said, hey, can you give us a 140 character review on whatever you're doing because you have 40,000 followers, and it has merit. So you talk to someone like Chris Brogan or Brian Solis, people like that. Send them whatever it is you're working on. If they happen to like it and they make a mention, it's an easy drive.
And don't underestimate the potential of self-publishing, developing your own powerful blog media sites. If you look at the collapse that's occurred in tech publishing, anyone know what the single largest distributed tech magazine in the world is today? It's Oracle magazine. Second largest is Dell's Power Solutions magazine. Third largest is InfoWorld. So increasingly the private label publications are starting to dominate the media landscape with deeper reach and richer content. There's no reason why even the smallest startup can't enter publishing with its own site that aggregates content and actually end up with a bigger circulation very quickly than any of the traditional media sites.
Fortune Small Business is now private label for Amex.
That's right, yeah. FSB took it off the stands, now an Amex-only publication.
Okay, other questions? Yes, the woman with her hand up. Yes. Who you are, who you work for, and your question.
Hi, I'm Sandy Path, and I'm with Peppercom. And I know, Karen, you mentioned Twitter, but I'd love to hear perspectives from the panel on Twitter and implications for your business, for our industry, and any predictions on where it's going.
Well, I think there's a difference. I think there's a difference between Twittering and Twitter, right? So I think that the act of Twittering is a really interesting phenomenon that is just going to continue unabated. If you think about Twitter, I think that's a point vehicle in time that may or may not continue to explode on the scene and be incredible, but I don't know how many of you are using the newer tools that aggregate your Facebook feed, your Twitter feed, all your feeds. Twittering as a act, you know, me 404ing what I'm doing right now, that is interesting because it posts to my blog, it hits my Facebook page, it hits Twitter. That's different than me sitting on Twitter all day wondering what the hell someone's doing next, which I don't have that much interest in, whereas I use Sidekick and some other, you know, the Adobe Air apps to just monitor what's going on out there, and I've set up keywords, and you should all be doing that, right? But that's different. That's following Twittering versus following Twitter, and I think there's a big difference that you need to focus on.
What about Steve?
Well, I was just going to say, I guess agreeing with Andy that, you know, certainly it's a useful data point. You know, we use it all the time. We keep a close eye on what's being said on Twitter about our company, our brands, and those sorts of things. But we also have our own sort of custom way of using Twitter, that I use it as a management tool, different from how we use it for listening. And that is, we've actually set up a private Twitter group where we have all the people on my team internally, my Fleischmann-Hillard teams, because we have teams around the world, Fleischmann teams distributed, and other colleagues of ours, and we have a group where we tweet about what we're working on that day. And for me, it's a really handy way to see at a glance several times a day. It recreates really something, Mark, that we had at Tex 100, and then I know the Byte offices also have. If you've ever been in a Tex 100 office, you know that they operate they're set up much like a newsroom where it's an open environment. And I always really like that at Tex 100, where you can kind of overhear that somebody on the neighboring pod finally just connected with somebody that I knew they were trying to connect with. So that sort of gives me a visual representation of that. I know that somebody in the UK finally connected with somebody they needed to connect with because they just tweeted about it. And I can see that and a half dozen other things at a glance several times a day and know exactly what's happening in the far reaches of my little tiny empire.
So you created IM?
No, not at all. It's not IM at all. It's not at all.
Or it's more of an immediacy than that.
Well, but everybody gets to see what everybody else is doing.
Okay, so do you create a chat room?
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, not just thinking like I'm thinking. I'm trying to compare it to what it is.
Yeah, it's like a chat room, but it's also in a really handy format. That's I think a lot easier to read than.
Yeah, it's searchable too. IM, it wasn't easily searchable.
The one thing I'd say on Twitter. This is my only take on Twitter. You know, Twitter is now where blogs were. Technorati came out with the greatest line ever about blogs. They said there are 394 million of them. There got to be 5 or 6 that are good. Okay, that's what's going on with Twitter right now. Everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. Okay, thank you, Oprah and Ashton. Go piss off. You know, so you got those people there, and you got everyone jumping on Twitter, and you still have maybe 30 or 40 people in this universe worth following. Same thing with blogs as they were. In terms of how to use it, and to your point, agree completely. Twitter and Twittering. There are two types of Twitterers. There's the Twitterer who says I'm eating yogurt, which no one cares about, and there are a lot of them. And then there's the Twitterer who says eating yogurt at the new Pinkberry on 47th and 9th, which just opened, so they're giving 50% off coupons all day. That's information.
Yeah.
You're providing a useful bit of information on Twitter, and that makes you followable.
That's proximity marketing.
Literally, we're in the, I'll be careful what I say here, we're in the millions of dollars of revenue in very short windows of time on Twitter by doing exactly that.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can follow the Dell Deals feed on Twitter. We do spot sales, 50 notebooks available in the next hour at this price, shift inventory.
Definitely.
That's all from PR. That's PR people sitting back going, hey, geez, instead of sending them an email spam to their mailbox, we'll spam them in Twitter instead, and people love it. People think it's cool.
Okay, so I have to amend my comment, though, on Twitter, because,
go ahead.
I agree. I personally find Twitter, you know, I'm eating yogurt. You're right. I find that stuff really tedious. But where we find Twitter very interesting, and where so in addition to Andy's stuff, is we tend to find it a very interesting competitive intelligence tool. When we look at IT analysts, for example, who are Twittering from competitors' conferences, for example, or Twitterers who are tweeting from our own conferences and saying, shit, this keynote is so boring, I wish this guy was covering whatever, then it can be such a great tool to go, oh, wow, we should be, so as long as you're listening to
if you
that
work
kind
for
of stuff.
HP, I just want to encourage you to keep letting your analysts Twitter from your conferences. It's a great idea.
It's a great idea for Dell.
Okay, I'm gonna cut this up. We only get 10 minutes left. A question over here, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm David Vosbrink. I'm with City of San Jose Airport, public sector. Do you have some advice for your poor brethren toiling in the common good who have reduced headcount, zero budgets, a risk-adverse culture, and the lords of IT say you can't play?
That was poetic. Show them show them.
Sorry. I was going to start by saying we're hiring.
I was saying
Send us your resume. No, but there's two things. One, because I would say to you a couple of things. First of all, IT has no choice, because 90% of what you need to do to harness the zero budget required world of social media sits completely outside of their domain and control. It is open source, it's in the open domain, you can go to town without their involvement, and it's all over before they've figured out what's going on.
Well, and
So-
also crucially, it's all on the web, and the fact is that unless they're actually stopping you going to websites, the fact is
Which
that
they
can't...
are. They do that. They block you all the time. Then half the people in here are royally screwed because they can't even get Gmail inside their corporate firewalls. But, you know, most people, it's $299 to buy a netbook. I'll be happy to give you a discount. And you can have a netbook with AT&T wireless, and you can be going to town on this all day long. Literally, even the largest companies I've been in to talk to on this are like, oh yeah, we've just completely circumvented IT on this. We're doing it this way. So the great news is zero budget required, just a bit of courage and guts. I always say to people, find an executive sponsor inside the business who can give you some air cover when people do discover what's going on. And IT is just they're not relevant, really. You can do all of this without an IT person being involved.
You know how NASA got involved with Twitter and got 300,000 something followers in a couple of days? The Mars rover was about to land on Mars, and as opposed to the Mars rover that went to Jupiter, right? And this woman had been fighting for months to issue real-time alerts as to it was landing and it was doing this. And they finally came and they said, "Great, we'll let you do real-time alerts. Just clear each alert by by the guy who does the public policy, and he'll get back to you in 24 hours for each real-time alert." And so she said, "Fine, I'll be sure to do that." And she sent out real-time alerts to him to be approved within 24 hours. At the same time, she Twittered under the username Mars Rover. That had nothing to do with NASA. She was doing it from her own personal BlackBerry, and she had created some like ridiculous amount of followers, Oprah-sized followers in a couple of days, and it was huge. And all of a sudden NASA got it. So it kind of evolves into what you did as a kid when you got caught doing something, and your mom said, "Well, you should have asked me first." Well, you would have said no. So I did it, and I proved I could do it. Now let me do it again.
Okay, 8 minutes left. If you dare, that's a good path for you.
And if not, he's hiring.
8 minutes left. Paula had a question. Who else had their hands up? Did you have a question? No? Come on. You drove a long way. Here's this woman right here.
Hi, my name's Moni Tenbrook. You hear that? I'm from a consulting firm called Amazon Consulting. We specialize in helping companies build channels, and it's not a commercial, but my question is, are you looking at your partners, your alliances, your strategic agreements with third parties differently in this age of new media? Do you target them as an audience? Are you measuring them? Because they could be your advocate, but you're also maybe bypassing them with some of the sales distribution. It's probably most appropriate for you two with Dell and Oracle. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, we had sort of a little secret we hadn't told anyone as a $60 billion company, and that was we had about a $10 billion distribution channel. So, we have channel blogs set up, which we use a lot for just listening to the channel. I think, though, that less in the distribution side, the really interesting area that no one is really done very much stuff around is the partnering side, is the alliances, because everyone in the tech industry is just so self-interested. It's hard to get us all to think about joint partner blogs and platforms where we're working with each other to initiate dialogues about what we jointly mean to somebody as opposed to what we individually mean to somebody. So I think that's a huge area we keep trying to get sorted out and never can crack. But on the channel side, it's a lot easier. We do a lot of blogging. We have a thing called Channel Storm, which is behind the firewall where all our channel partners give us ideas. We have a whole lot of wikis and stuff we use with channel partners. So yeah, we're pretty built out on that one.
Yeah, so I'd say for anybody who's having a low self-esteem day, definitely go meet with partner organizations because they're so grateful. I mean, I find our partner, I was just in Las Vegas a week ago before things changed at Sun, speaking to all of our largest partners. And one, they're fabulous people, and two, they're so many small entrepreneurial businesses. And so many, particularly in the IT world, you know, many of our partner alliances organizations are, you know, they're very traditional companies. And so new business opportunity for agencies, education, training about social media tools and opportunities and new things for these organizations to do. I have not presented to such a positive, receptive group of people in a really, really long time, and really felt like, you know, when I walked away, it provided them with a lot of value.
Other questions? Yes, sir. Looks like Greg Eden there.
Is this thing on? All right.
Yes.
Greg Eden with Infatico. I have a question around how does all this play internationally, particularly the social media tactics that you're talking about, but also PR in a downturn. What's going on, particularly those of you with the global companies? What are you doing with your PR spend internationally? Are you adjusting dollars over there, away from there? How are you thinking about that?
Great question.
I think that's a really interesting question because up until about November of last year, I don't think there's a large tech company out there that wasn't dramatically increasing its investment in emerging countries, particularly Brazil, India, China. And I don't think there was a single one of us reconsidering our PR and marketing spend in EMEA. I think every one of us is reconsidering our PR spend in EMEA right now, given what's going on. I mean, EMEA is in a recession, which makes ours look like a holiday. It's clear India has sort of declined quite substantially and is not presenting any growth. So I think, I mean, at least I know, you know, we're reconsidering where we're investing there and taking money and actually reinvesting it back in the US, because the US, France, and Germany seem to afford pretty good growth, along with the Nordics and Benelux. So a lot of the traditional investment pattern around emerging countries, I think people are, at least the people I talk to, including us, are stepping back a little bit, getting a bit more considered about that. Still investing, right? And comparatively still investing a lot. I think we're all going to continue to go crazy in China still in perpetuity, and Japan is still a big priority too, but it really has caused, I think, a lot of companies to step back from the scale of investment that was being made in, you know, particularly in India, some of the second-tier emerging countries. Russia may as well, you know, Russia is bizarre right now. I mean, they're experiencing negative population growth to the tune of 700,000 people a year. So it's like so bad, no one wants to have kids, you know. So you look at what we were doing a year ago, and it's very, very different today, and that actually could bode quite well for, I think, the North American PR market.
Steve?
Nearly the same as what Andy described. We're, again, a much smaller company, about a $600 million company. Where I would say our strategy is a little different is that in Europe, again, a little bit contrary to the larger trend, we're actually maintaining our spend in Europe. But the opportunities and pressures are different for us because we're so heavily focused on financial services. But I'm not sure we addressed, Andy addressed the other part of the question, which was about social media and how does that kind of leap outside the United States. And I'm not sure, I'm interested in how some of my fellow panelists would answer that. I think in our case, a lot of the discussion is, again, because of the specific business that we're in, a lot of the discussion is emanating from North America. So the social media that are part of our campaigns and part of our listening and everything else, which the infrastructure is really built out, seems more so in the United States, works for us. But I wonder about some of the other folks.
What I'd say to that point, Steve, is that what we're seeing with our clients, particularly social media, it's pulling stuff back to the center. The fact is that people outside of the US, they like to interact with the guys who they feel are making the decisions, who are at the center of things. That generally means that they actually like the direct contact that social media enables with the guys who are working at headquarters, the guys who are actually making the decisions around what goes into the next kind of set of software and the next upgrades and whatever else. So what we're seeing is there's still a need for some very local attention in specific markets, but you're seeing an increasing amount of stuff that is actually coming back to the center, coming back to headquarters, because actually social media enables people outside of the US to be able to have direct interaction, direct contact with the guys who are based here. So you're sort of seeing this kind of this move towards the center, but with then smaller pockets of local stuff where it's absolutely needed.
Okay, from left to right, Peter, Karen, Andy, Mark, Artie, and Steve. Let's put it together for our esteemed panelists. Next time we get together, we'll do it under more profitable circumstances.
Amen.
Thank you.